The night sky above Earth was calm, filled with silent stars. In a small research center in Arizona, a young scientist named Dr. Elena Brooks sat in front of a wide screen glowing with strange data. She had been listening to deep space signals for almost 7 years, hoping one day to catch something new as a whisper from beyond. At exactly 2:37 a.m., her computer beeped. At first she thought it was another system glitch, but then the monitor filled with a stream of rhythmic pulses, too organized to be random, too emotional to be mechanical. The pattern repeated every few seconds like a heartbeat. Her eyes widened. This isn't natural," she whispered. She quickly began decoding the signal. The more she studied it, the more her heart raced. It wasn't a normal transmission. It carried urgency, fear, and a plea. The message, once translated through several layers of mathematical language, said something chillingly simple. "Help us. They are coming. We are dying," Elena froze. The coordinates attached to the message pointed to a system 42 light-years away, on the edge of the Andromeda border, far beyond any human reach. But somehow the message was directed to Earth. Meanwhile, thousands of kilometers away, the United Earth Fleet Command in Geneva was already buzzing. The same signal had been detected by multiple satellites, and its frequency was so specific that military AI systems automatically flagged it as intelligent origin. Admiral Marcus Hale, commander of the Earth Fleet, entered the control room, his face calm but serious. "What do we have?" he asked, placing his hands on the table. A young officer replied, "Sir, it's not a threat. It's a distress call, but it wasn't meant for us." Marcus frowned. "Then who was it meant for?" The officer hesitated. According to the message structure, it was coded in a form similar to the Galactic Union communication format. Whoever sent this message believed we were part of that union. Silence filled the room. Marcus had heard of the Galactic Union before, or rather, the myths about it. An ancient alliance of species that ruled large parts of the galaxy, rumored to have fallen apart centuries ago. Humanity had never made official contact with any known alien civilization. Until now. In another corner of the world, deep inside a hidden base beneath the Pacific Ocean, an old scientist named Dr. Kenji Sato watched the signal playback. His hair was silver, his eyes tired yet sharp. He had worked on secret projects for decades, preparing Earth for first contact that never came. "This is not a coincidence," he murmured. "Someone out there thinks humanity is more powerful than we are." A younger technician beside him looked confused. "Sir, should we respond?" Kenji shook his head slowly. "No, not yet. First, we must understand what's happening. If they're calling for help, it means something terrible is out there." He paused. "And if they called us, maybe the universe thinks we can do something about it." Days passed. News about the mysterious signal leaked on social media. People began debating, was it real? Was it a hoax? Were aliens asking humans for help? Governments denied involvement, but the public grew restless. Artists painted the words, "Help us," across city walls. Children asked questions their parents couldn't answer. Churches, scientists, and dreamers all looked to the stars, wondering who needed saving. Elena Brooks couldn't sleep. She replayed the signal hundreds of times. Each pulse felt like a cry, as if someone far away was calling out in pain. Finally, she made a decision. She would send a reply. Her fingers trembled as she typed, "This is Earth. We received your message. Who are you? What happened?" She hesitated before pressing send. What if no one answered? Or worse, what if someone did? 3 nights later, the stars above her observatory shimmered strangely. Then her speakers crackled with sound. A distorted voice echoed through static. "We did not mean to call your kind. The Union is gone. They will find us soon. Help." Then the voice broke off. A violent sound like thunder and screaming metal filled the air, and the signal vanished. Elena stared at the silent screen. Her heart pounded. They were alive, but something terrible had happened. She immediately sent her data to the Earth Fleet Command. Within hours, Admiral Marcus Hale ordered an emergency council meeting. Scientists, politicians, and generals gathered around a holographic table showing a star map of the signal's origin. Kenji Sato joined remotely from his ocean base. "The message was emotional," he explained. "There was fear, not just in their words, but in the energy signature. They're running from something powerful. Powerful enough to destroy a civilization, Marcus said grimly. No one spoke. The air was thick with tension. Finally, a diplomat broke the silence. Should we help them? Marcus looked around the room. If we don't, they'll die. But if we do, we might bring war to our doorstep. Dr. Sato leaned forward. Sometimes humanity's greatest strength is not its power, it's compassion. The room fell silent again. Then Marcus spoke firmly. Prepare the fleet. A month later, under the dark sky of orbiting Earth, hundreds of ships floated silently, shining like silver arrows in the night. Humanity had never sent a fleet beyond its solar borders before. The mission was called Operation Dawn Reach. Elena Brooks was among the few civilians allowed aboard the flagship, UES Horizon. Admiral Hale stood beside her as they watched the Earth shrink in the distance. Are we really doing this? She asked quietly. We're not warriors, he replied. We're responders. Elena smiled faintly. I hope whoever sent that message knows. We're coming. As the fleet aligned their drives, Kenji's voice echoed through the comms, calm yet proud. For the first time in history, humanity does not go to conquer. We go to answer a cry for help. Then the stars stretched. The fleet jumped. Far away in the dying system of Zerath Prime, a small alien figure looked up at a broken sky. The air was thick with smoke and the ground burned with the marks of destruction. Her name was Saren, a young scientist from a race called the Velari, peaceful beings once protected by the Galactic Union. She stared at her shattered communicator, whispering, They won't come. I sent the message wrong. They won't understand. Her father, weak and fading, touched her hand gently. Even if you called the wrong ones, maybe they'll still help. Saren shook her head. Humans are primitive, father. They can't reach us. Her father smiled faintly, eyes closing. Hope travels faster than light, my child. And as the last of the Velari cities fell to the dark fleet of the Draxan Empire, a new light suddenly pierced the horizon, bright, fierce, and pure. Thousands of human ships emerged from the void, their engines glowing like dawn breaking through a storm. Saren gasped. Who are they? A voice echoed through the dark clouds, Nabu, strong, human, and filled with determination. This is the United Earth Fleet. We received your call. You're not alone anymore. The war-torn sky lit up, and for the first time in years, hope returned to Zerath Prime. The fleet of humanity broke through the clouds of Zerath Prime like a new sunrise. Thousands of ships glowed softly, their hulls reflecting the flames of a dying world below. For the surviving Velari, it was like watching a dream. Beings they never knew existed had arrived to save them. On the flagship UES Horizon, Admiral Marcus Hale stood tall in front of the panoramic window, his face calm yet burdened. The planet below was burning. His voice carried through the command deck. Prepare rescue teams. No weapons unless fired upon. We're not here for war. We're here to help. Elena Brooks stood beside him, eyes wide in awe. I never thought I'd see another world, she whispered. Marcus gave a small nod. You wanted to talk to the stars, Doctor. Now the stars are talking back. Down on the surface, Saren, the Velari scientist, stared at the sky, unable to believe her eyes. The burning clouds parted to reveal ships descending gracefully. The symbols on their hulls were strange but elegant, shaped like wings and circles. The mark of Earth. Father, she whispered, shaking his hand. They came. I told you they wouldn't, but they did. Her father's breathing was weak, but a faint smile touched his lips. Then maybe the universe still listens to broken voices. A deep rumble filled the air as human landing crafts touched down. Soldiers in silver suits stepped out, scanning the surroundings. Behind them came medics carrying equipment unfamiliar to the Velari. One soldier removed his helmet and walked forward carefully, hands raised in peace. He was Lieutenant Aaron Pike, leader of the First Contact Squad. My name is Aaron Pike, United Earth Fleet. We're here to help. Saren, trembling but determined, stepped forward. Her skin shimmered faintly blue under the light, and her large eyes reflected sorrow and exhaustion. You came for us? Aaron nodded. You called for help. We couldn't ignore it. Saren's voice shook. We didn't mean to call your kind. It was a mistake. Aaron smiled softly. Sometimes the best things happen by mistake. As the humans began tending to the wounded Velari, Elena and a small scientific team arrived on the surface. The ground was covered in dust and ash. The remains of once great cities stood like skeletons in the distance, Elena's heart tightened as she looked around. Saren approached her cautiously. "You are their leader?" Elena shook her head. "No, just someone who heard your voice." The two women looked at each other, their expressions full of quiet understanding. Despite being from different worlds, they shared something deep, the desire to protect life. Saren gestured toward the horizon where dark smoke rose endlessly. "They came from the void," she said. "The Draxen. They destroy everything they touch. Our cities, our people, everything," Elena asked softly. "How long have they been attacking?" 3 cycles, Saren answered. "We were part of something once, the Galactic Union. They kept peace among worlds. But when it fell, the Draxen rose. We tried to call the Union for help, but the frequencies changed. The call reached you instead." Elena's eyes softened. Then maybe it wasn't a mistake. Maybe the universe sent it to the right people after all. In orbit, Admiral Hale received updates. Over 20,000 Valari survivors had been found hiding underground. The human fleet began providing food, medicine, and shelter. Drones rebuilt communication towers to coordinate the rescue effort, but there was a shadow beneath the hope. Deep space scanners had detected movement. The Draxon fleet was returning. Commander Lena Ortiz, second in command, turned to the Admiral. "Sir, we've got unidentified ships inbound." "Big ones," Marcus exhaled slowly. "They're coming for what's left of this planet." He looked at the holographic image of Zerath Prime. The humans were outnumbered 5-1. They had the technology, but this was no planned battle. Still, retreating wasn't an option, not while people were still on the surface. "Prepare the defensive line," Marcus ordered. "Evacuate as many Valari as possible. We hold until the last ship is safe." Back on the ground, Elena found Saren again. "We have to move your people to safety," she said urgently. Saren shook her head. "There are still thousands in the lower cities. The Draxen bombed our tunnels. They can't escape in time." Elena looked toward the sky, where distant flashes of light showed ships preparing for battle. "We'll buy you time. Humanity doesn't leave anyone behind." Saren's eyes glistened. "You would risk yourselves for strangers?" Elena smiled faintly. "We were strangers once too, even to each other." High above, the human fleet formed a shield around Zerath Prime. The Draxen ships appeared out of hyperspace like a storm. Black, spiked vessels that moved with terrifying grace. A cold voice echoed across all frequencies. "This world belongs to the Draxen Dominion. Leave now or be destroyed." Admiral Hale stood firm. "This world called for help," we answered. "You'll have to go through us." There was a long silence. Then the Draxen replied, voice dripping with disdain. "Then you will share their fate." And the battle began. The first wave of energy beams cut through the void, shaking the sky above the planet. Human ships responded with precision fire, forming bright arcs of light. The clash looked like fireworks from the ground, terrible, beautiful, and full of courage. Elena and Saren watched from a ridge near the evacuation site. The horizon flickered with explosions. Saren whispered, "They're fighting for us." Elena nodded. "Yes, and we won't let their fight be wasted." Together they coordinated the last group of survivors, guiding children, elders, and wounded Valari into the human transports. Even in chaos, hope was blooming. Humans and aliens helping each other. No longer strangers, but allies. Meanwhile, aboard the horizon, Marcus Hale commanded calmly amid the storm. "Focus fire on their flagship," one officer shouted. "Shields at 60%, sir." "Hold the line," Marcus ordered. Suddenly, one of the human ships, UES Phoenix, was hit badly. Its hull tore apart, fire spilling into the dark. Marcus clenched his jaw. "Get them out of there!" But before the Phoenix exploded, it turned, engines flaring, and rammed into a Draxen cruiser, destroying both in a brilliant flash. Everyone on the bridge fell silent. Commander Ortiz whispered, "They bought us time." Marcus closed his eyes briefly, then said softly, "Honor their sacrifice. Keep fighting." On the surface, the last group of Valari was finally aboard. Saren stood at the ramp, looking back at her destroyed city. The place she had been born, the place she had almost died. Elena placed a hand on her shoulder. "We have to go," Saren's voice broke. "Everything we had, it's gone." Elena looked at her gently. "Not everything. You're alive. That means your people still have a future." As the ship lifted off, Saren watched the ground disappear beneath them, her home turning into ashes and light. In orbit, the battle raged on. The Draxan flagship unleashed a massive weapon, tearing through several human vessels. The horizon shook violently. Sparks flew across the command deck. "Admiral, shields are down to 20%. Marcus gritted his teeth. "All power to front cannons. Aim for their core." Kenji Sato's voice crackled through the comms from his research vessel nearby. "Marcus, listen to me. The Draxan weapon draws energy from a quantum core. If you destabilize it, it'll blow," Marcus finished grimly. "And take us with it." Kenji hesitated. "Sometimes sacrifice is the only language darkness understands." Marcus looked out at the enemy ship, then back at the evacuation ships below. His decision was already made. "Commander Ortiz, take the fleet and pull back." "That's an order." Ortiz turned sharply. "Sir, what about you?" "I'll stay. Someone has to make sure they don't follow." She stared at him for a moment, then saluted, eyes wet. "It's been an honor, Admiral." Elena's transport reached orbit just as the human fleet began retreating. She noticed one ship, the Horizon, and staying behind. "Wait," she said suddenly. "Why isn't the flagship moving?" Saren looked through the window. "He's staying to protect us." Elena pressed her hand to the glass. "No." Moments later, the Horizon turned toward the Draxan flagship. Engines burned brighter than ever before. Admiral Hale's final message echoed through all channels. "To whoever hears this, tell them humanity came not to conquer, but to protect." We stood for hope. "Don't forget us." The Horizon accelerated, colliding directly with the enemy core. The explosion lit up the void like a second sun. The Draxan ships were thrown apart, their systems destroyed. Silence followed. Days later, the surviving human fleet drifted near a safe orbit. The Draxan were gone, the Volari rescued, but the loss weighed heavily. Elena sat quietly in the medbay, watching Saren care for wounded humans. The bond between their peoples had already begun to grow, from fear into friendship. Saren looked up. "Your people, they saved us, even when we didn't deserve it." Elena smiled weakly. "You didn't call the wrong ones, Saren, you called the right ones." Both women looked out the window at the stars. Somewhere beyond the light, the memory of Admiral Hale and his ship burned eternally, a symbol of what humanity could be at its best. The war was over, at least for now. The skies above Zerath Prime were calm again, filled not with fire but with quiet stars. The ruins below still smoked, but among the ashes life was beginning to return. Humans and Volari worked side by side, building shelters, cleaning debris, and tending to the wounded. For the first time in history, two species shared one mission: to rebuild. The beginning of a new Dawn Doctor. Elena Brooks stood on a ridge overlooking the half-destroyed city of Varan, where the first joint base was being built. The wind carried a faint warmth, the smell of burned soil mixed with the scent of new grass breaking through the ground. She held a small metal badge in her hand, Admiral Marcus Hale's insignia. It was all they had recovered from the UES Horizon. Saren walked up beside her, her blue skin glowing softly under the twin suns. "That belonged to your leader, didn't it?" she asked gently. Elena nodded. "He gave everything so we could be here." Saren looked toward the construction below. "Then we will make sure his sacrifice means something. The Volari will never forget what your people did." Elena smiled faintly. "Neither will we." Together they stood in silence as a group of Volari children laughed in the distance, chasing after human drones that carried food crates. The sight brought tears to Elena's eyes. Laughter in a place that had once been full of screams. The Joint Command in orbit. The remaining human ships had formed a temporary station. Commander Lena Ortiz, now leading the fleet, worked closely with Dr. Kenji Sato and the Volari Council. Their mission was simple: rebuild, protect, and learn. Kenji spoke calmly during a meeting aboard the orbital station. "The Draxan may have retreated, but they won't stay gone. Their empire stretches across hundreds of systems. We have to prepare for their return." One Volari elder, Counselor Aaron, bowed his head. "You humans saved us once. We cannot ask you to risk your lives again," Ortiz replied firmly. "You didn't ask. We chose to. Humanity doesn't abandon those who call for help." Kenji added, "If we stand together, maybe next time we won't just survive. We'll win." The council exchanged looks of cautious hope. For centuries, the Valari had believed themselves weak, too peaceful to fight, but these humans, they fought not for power but for compassion. It was something rare, something powerful. A friendship forged in Los Elena and Saren grew close in the following weeks. They worked together in the scientific reconstruction team, studying the damaged energy cores of Valari technology. One day, inside a ruined research tower, Saren showed Elena a holographic image of her home city, tall crystal structures shining under clear blue skies. "This is what it used to look like," Saren said softly, "before the Draxen came." Elena touched the hologram, her eyes gentle. "It's beautiful," Saren smiled sadly. It was more than beauty. Our people believed the crystals carried memories, songs, thoughts, even dreams of those who lived before us. When the city fell, those memories burned. Elena thought for a moment. Maybe not all of them. Human computers record data in light too. If we can recover your memory crystals, maybe we can bring some of it back. Saren's eyes widened. "You can do that?" Elena nodded. "We can try." From that day, they worked tirelessly. Together, human engineers and Valari scientists began salvaging crystal fragments. Slowly, faint images appeared. Old faces, laughter, messages of peace from the Valari's past. When the first recovered projection played in the town square, both species gathered around. It showed a Valari mother singing to her child, her voice soft and pure. Many cried, even the soldiers who had fought in the war. Saren whispered, "You gave our past back to us." Elena smiled through tears. "And you gave us a reason to believe again." The secret in the stars while peace returned to the planet. Kenji Sato's mind was restless. Something about the Draxen's technology bothered him. Their weapons were too advanced, far beyond what even a fallen galactic union could have produced. In his lab aboard the research vessel Nova Dawn, Kenji studied a damaged piece of Draxen machinery recovered from the battlefield. The metal pulsed faintly, alive with strange energy. He ran tests for hours, then suddenly froze. The energy signature, it was human in origin. He called Ortiz immediately. "Commander, I think I found something disturbing. The Draxen are using power systems derived from old human signal tech, radio wave resonance." Ortiz frowned. "How is that possible? We've never even met them before this." Kenji hesitated. "Unless they learned from us long ago, or from something that once contacted us." A chill ran through the room. If the Draxen had access to human-like energy sources, it meant the two civilizations were connected in some distant, forgotten way. And that connection could explain why the Valari's distress call reached Earth. The frequencies were similar enough to cross networks. Ortiz sighed. "So humanity wasn't just found by accident. We were pulled into this for a reason." Kenji looked at the glowing fragment. "Yes, and whatever that reason is, it's not finished yet. The seeds of unity back on Zerath Prime weeks turned into months. The humans and Valari built schools, medical centers, and gardens across the damaged cities. Children from both species learned together, humans teaching technology, Valari teaching harmony with nature. Elena often watched them play, her heart warm. "They don't see us as aliens," she said one day. Saren laughed softly. "Children see only kindness. It's adults who make walls." One evening, as the two sat by the river, the twin suns setting behind them, Saren asked, "Elena, what will you do when your people go home?" Elena was quiet for a moment. "Home, I think." "Home is wherever we decide to make it," Saren smiled. "Then stay. Help us rebuild. You are part of this world now." Elena looked up at the stars. "Maybe we both belong to something bigger. Not Earth, not Zerath, but to hope itself. The Draxen's shadow, but peace never lasts forever." A month later, the warning alarm sounded again. A probe detected unknown signals near the edge of the system. The pattern was unmistakable. Draxen communication codes. Commander Ortiz called for an emergency meeting. "They're regrouping," she said grimly. "And this time they're not sending scouts. They're sending an armada." Elena, listening from the side, clenched her fists. "We can't run. We've come too far to give up now." Kenji nodded. "We won't. But we need something new. A defense they can't predict." He turned to Saren. "Your crystal technology, Can it generate planetary shields if we merge it with our plasma fields? Saren thought for a moment, then her eyes lit up. Yes, it could work. The crystals resonate with energy frequencies. If we sync them with your power cores, we might create a barrier strong enough to block orbital fire. Elena grinned. Then let's get to work. The bond of hope, the next few weeks were filled with activity. Humans and Valari engineers worked side by side in massive energy chambers. Draxan ships were approaching fast, but the new shield network, named the Halo of Dawn, was nearly ready. On the day of activation, the people of Zerath gathered to watch. The sky glowed with silver light as the crystals across the planet began to hum. The sound was deep and beautiful, like 1,000 voices singing together. Kenji's voice echoed over the comms. Power at 90%. Synchronizing field, now. A brilliant dome of light surrounded the planet, shimmering like glass. The people cheered. Saren looked at Elena, her eyes shining. We did it. Elena smiled, but her expression carried both pride and worry. We'll find out soon if it holds. The promise that night, as the planet rested under the glowing halo, Elena recorded a message for Earth. To anyone who hears this is Dr. Elena Brooks of the United Earth Fleet. Humanity came here because of a mistake, but we stayed because of something greater. We found friends, family, and hope among the stars. If Admiral Hale could see this world now, he'd know his sacrifice wasn't in vain. The Valarian humans stand together, and together we'll protect not just this planet but everything good in the galaxy. She paused, then smiled softly at the camera. Sometimes the wrong signal can reach the right hearts. In the morning, Saren met her near the edge of the rebuilding city. The halo above glowed faintly pink under the sunrise. Saren said, When I first sent that message, I thought I doomed my people. I never imagined help would come from the stars. Elena replied, You didn't just save your people. Saren, you changed ours. They looked at each other, two beings from different worlds, united by a single truth. Compassion was the strongest force in the universe. Above them, human and Valari ships patrolled together, their symbols painted side by side. On the horizon, new cities rose, a blend of human steel and Valari crystal, glowing together like living monuments to unity. The final line, Kenji stood aboard the Nova Dawn, watching the shield shimmer. Commander Ortiz approached him quietly. You think it'll hold? He smiled faintly. It will. Because it wasn't built by one world, it was built by two. Ortiz nodded. Then maybe this galaxy still has a chance. As they looked out toward the stars, the faint outline of distant ships appeared. The Draxan were coming again. But this time, the humans and Valari were ready. They weren't just survivors anymore. They were protectors. And somewhere beyond the stars, in the eternal silence of space, the memory of Admiral Hale's voice seemed to echo, strong and full of pride. We came when no one else would. We stood when no one else could. That's what it means to be human. The twin suns rose over Zerath Prime, bathing both species in light. The twin suns of Zerath Prime bathed the planet in soft light, illuminating the half-rebuilt cities and the glowing crystal towers rising from the ruins. For months, humans and Valari had worked side by side, turning destruction into hope. Children laughed again, robots carried supplies across new roads, and both species learned from each other, humans teaching technology, Valari teaching harmony with nature. But peace is fragile, especially when shadows lurk beyond the stars. A silent warning commander, Lena Ortiz, stood on the observation deck of the UES Horizon's sister ship, UES Vanguard. Her eyes were fixed on the edge of the system. The deep space scanners had picked up unusual readings, faint energy pulses that matched the signature of Draxan stealth ships. Sir, said Lieutenant Kieran, these are not normal patrols. They're cloaked, advanced. We have maybe a few hours before they reach the planet. Kenji Sato frowned as he analyzed the data. These ships, their energy patterns are derived from human signal technology, but enhanced. Someone learned from us long ago, or used us as a blueprint. Ortiz turned to him sharply. Are you saying the Draxan had access to human tech before we even made contact? Kenji nodded gravely. Yes, it's possible they studied our early broadcasts, perhaps centuries ago. That could explain why your fleet was detected by the Valari in the first place. The Draxan understood how signals propagate. Ortiz exhaled slowly. Then this wasn't just about Zerath Prime, they know we exist now. And somewhere deep in the void, the Draxen were watching, preparing their next move. A planet preparing for war on the surface. Saren stood with Elena and a small group of Valari leaders looking up at the stars. "You think they'll come back?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly. Elena placed a comforting hand on her shoulder. "Yes, but we're ready this time. The halo of dawn shields will protect the cities." Saren nodded, though unease lingered in her expression. "Our people have never faced this many enemies at once. They may not understand fear, but they feel it all the same." Elena smiled gently. "Fear is natural. Courage is what we do with it." Volunteers began organizing evacuation drills, emergency shelters, and supply networks. Humans trained Valari in strategic combat, and the Valari shared knowledge about the planet's energy sources, teaching them to use the crystals to reinforce the shield network. Even the children were prepared, learning safe zones and evacuation routes, though no one could stop their eyes from flicking to the sky whenever a strange light appeared. The first strike it came at dusk. A flash of black streaks against the horizon. Draxen warships decloaking in formation, their spiked hulls gleaming ominously. The scanners screamed warnings, and alarms blared across both the human and Valari cities. Elena and Saren watched from a ridge as ships lifted from the surface, carrying civilians to safety. The twin suns cast long shadows across the land, creating a surreal battlefield. Ortiz's voice came over the comms. "All units activate shield reinforcement. Deploy interceptors. Protect the transports at all costs." From orbit, the fleet opened fire. Plasma beams lit the darkness as human ships maneuvered in unison with Valari vessels, combining tactics and energy fields. The sky erupted in a ballet of fire and light, terrifying yet beautiful in its unity. Saren whispered, "They're faster than last time. How can we stand against so many?" Elena held her gaze steady. "Because we fight together. That's our advantage. They may have numbers, but we have heart, and heart is unpredictable." The Draxen flagship emerged last, massive, black, almost alive in its movements. Its main weapon began charging, a bright sphere of energy growing larger by the second. Kenji Sato, aboard the research vessel Nova Dawn, studied the weapon's core. "It's a quantum disruptor," he explained. "It can collapse shields if fired at full power. We need to act now, or everything we've built will be destroyed." Marcus Hale's final teachings echoed in Elena's mind. Sometimes sacrifice is the only language darkness understands. Elena exchanged a look with Saren. "We'll have to be brave and smart." Together they coordinated the city's energy grids. Valari crystals amplified the plasma cannons, and human engineers synchronized their targeting systems. Ortiz gave the order. "Fire when ready. Focus on the core." The battle above. The two fleets clashed in space above Zerath Prime. The Draxen unleashed wave after wave of missiles and energy beams, but the halo of Dawn Shield absorbed most of it. Still, the sheer numbers of the enemy forced both humans and Valari to retreat strategically, drawing them into a trap Kenji had designed. Elena and Saren monitored the city's defenses from a joint command post. "Keep the shield steady," Elena shouted over the alarms. "Focus on resonance with the crystal cores." Saren's hands glowed faintly as she directed energy pulses into the network. The crystals responded, emitting a harmonic vibration that strengthened the shield. Below, children huddled with teachers and parents watching the sky. Fear was there, but it was matched by awe. Awe at the courage and cooperation of two species standing against a darkness that seemed unstoppable. Sacrifice and Strategy 1 of the human interceptors, piloted by Lieutenant Aaron Pike, engaged a Draxen squadron that had broken through the outer defense. He knew his chances were slim. As he maneuvered through enemy fire, he sent a final transmission. "If we fall, keep fighting. Protect the planet. Humanity stands with the Zerath." Moments later, the Phoenix Squadron exploded in a flash of brilliant light, destroying multiple enemy vessels in the process. Their sacrifice bought critical time for the shield and the evacuation efforts. Elena felt a pang of sorrow, but also determination. We honor them by surviving. We honor them by winning. The secret weapon Kenji had discovered a critical weakness in the Draxen flagship. The core was powered by a resonance system similar to the Valari crystals. If he could synchronize a massive energy pulse from the city's network, it might destabilize the enemy core. "Saren," he said urgently, "we need you to channel the city's energy through the crystals at maximum output. Elena, coordinate the human plasma grids with her. Timing is everything." Saren nodded. "I understand." Elena's hands flew over the controls, her mind focused. The city hummed with energy, every crystal responding to Saren's command. Together they created a perfect harmonic wave, a pulse of energy aimed directly at the Draxon flagship's core. Kenji gave the countdown. 3, 2, 1. Release. A beam of pure glowing energy shot into space, striking the Draxon flagship. The massive vessel shuddered violently, its hull cracking under the force. Then cut a blinding explosion. The enemy fleet faltered, disoriented and weakened. Human and Valari ships pressed the advantage, forcing the remaining Draxon vessels into retreat. Victory and loss as silence returned. The survivors of Zerath Prime emerged from shelters. The twin suns reflected off the shield, now flickering but holding strong. Saren collapsed to her knees, exhausted. Elena knelt beside her. "It's over." For now, Saren nodded, tears streaming. "We survived because of you. Because of them." Ortiz, surveying the battlefield from orbit, contacted the city. "All units report. Shields holding. Enemy retreating. Humanity and Valari stand together." Cheering erupted from the rebuilt towns below. Children waved at the ships above. For the first time in months, people smiled freely again. Yet in the hearts of the commanders and scientists, a quiet shadow remained. They knew the Draxon would return, stronger and more prepared. But now they had learned something crucial. United. Two species could challenge even the darkest empire, a bond beyond worlds that night. As both species celebrated cautiously, Elena and Saren walked along the riverbank near the rebuilt city. The crystals in the water reflected the twin suns, creating a rainbow of light. Saren spoke softly. "I never thought I would see hope again." "Not after everything we lost." Elena smiled, touching Saren's arm. "Hope isn't something we find. It's something we choose. Every day, every moment, every action. That's what makes it powerful." Saren looked at her, a faint glow of Valari magic radiating from her hands. "Then we choose it, together." Elena nodded. "Together." Above them, the halo of dawn shimmered faintly, a reminder that courage, unity, and compassion could light the darkest nights. And somewhere beyond the stars, faint signals hinted that the galaxy was far larger than they had imagined, full of both danger and possibility. A new chapter had begun, one born from a mistake, but destined to change the universe forever. The twin suns of Zerath Prime rose over the horizon, illuminating a world scarred but alive. The cities shimmered with a blend of human steel and Valari crystal, monuments to courage, hope, and unity. Humans and Valari worked side by side, rebuilding what was lost, sharing knowledge, and creating a future neither species could have imagined alone. Yet the galaxy remained vast, and shadows loomed beyond the stars. A warning from the Stars commander Lena Ortiz stood on the bridge of the UES Vanguard, her gaze fixed on deep space scanners. "Multiple Draxon vessels detected," she reported calmly, though the tension in the room was palpable. Kenji Sato studied the readings. "They're approaching fast, but they've adapted their cloaking technology. They know we exist and they're coming prepared." Ortiz clenched her jaw. "Then we face them. We've survived worse." Elena Brooks, standing beside Ortiz, adjusted the communications panel. "And we're not alone this time. Every city, every ship, every crystal on Zerath Prime is ready." Saren appeared on the observation deck, her eyes glowing softly. "Our people are scared, but they trust you, Elena. They trust humans. And that is our greatest strength." Elena nodded. "Then let's make sure they don't regret it." The final battle begins. The Draxon fleet emerged from hyperspace, larger than ever before. The flagship, a colossal spiked vessel, led the formation. Smaller warships flanked it like predatory birds ready to strike. "Activate the Halo of Dawn at full power," Ortiz ordered. "Synchronize with every city grid. Every crystal, every generator, now!" Saren began channeling energy through the Valari crystals, her hands glowing with a soft blue light. Elena coordinated the human plasma networks, linking the city's energy into a single pulsating beam of protective force. Below, Civilians huddled in reinforced shelters, their eyes wide but filled with hope. The children, some carrying small flags of both species, whispered prayers and songs of courage. The first wave of Draxan attack ships struck. Plasma beams sliced through space, but the halo absorbed most of the damage. Explosions lit up the sky like thunderstorms, shaking the ground below. Saren shouted, "Keep the resonance steady. Don't let the pulse falter." Elena's fingers flew over the controls. "We're holding." Focus on their flagship core. That's our key. Sacrifice and bravery. Lieutenant Aaron Pike led a squadron of human interceptors, daring to engage the Draxan flanking forces. His ships danced through enemy fire, each maneuver precise and calculated. On board the Nova Dawn, Kenji monitored the battle. "Aaron is creating an opening," he said. "If we can get a direct energy pulse to the flagship core, we can end this." Aaron transmitted his final coordinates. "I'll buy you the window. Humanity stands with Xerath. Make it count." The Phoenix Squadron collided with multiple Draxan ships, sacrificing themselves to open a path for the main energy pulse. The fleet held their breath as the signal window opened. The human Valari Unity Elena turned to Saren. "This is it. Synchronize the city's crystals with the human plasma network. Now." Saren raised her hands, chanting in the ancient Valari language. The crystals hummed, their glow intensifying. Energy surged through the city, funneled upward in a shimmering column aimed directly at the Draxan flagship. Elena's voice carried over the comms. "Focus, every unit, every crystal, every ship, unite with me." The column of energy struck the Draxan flagship's core. The massive vessel shook violently, alarms blared, and beams of light tore through the ship's hull. The Draxan fleet faltered, thrown into chaos. Ortiz gave the command, "Press the attack." "Finish this now." Human and Valari ships moved in perfect formation, striking the remaining Draxan vessels with precision. Explosions lit the void, and within moments, the enemy fleet broke apart, retreating into the darkness of space. A moment of silence. When the dust settled, silence reigned over Xerath Prime. The halo of dawn shimmered faintly, still holding the planet in a protective glow. On the ground, Saren knelt beside the edge of a river, exhausted. Elena sat beside her, hands covered in soot and sweat. Both looked at the remnants of the battle. Ships destroyed, some cities damaged, but the people alive. "Is it really over?" Saren whispered. Elena placed a hand on her shoulder. "For now. But we survived together. That's what matters." The children emerged from shelters, running toward the adults, laughter and tears mingling. Humans and Valari hugged each other, strangers no longer, united in survival and victory. Honoring the fallen, Kenji Sato and Ortiz organized memorials for the brave souls who had fallen. Human pilots, Valari defenders, and even volunteers from both species who had given everything for the safety of others. In the largest square of the rebuilt city, a monument rose, half human metal, half Valari crystal, engraved with the words, "We came together in darkness. Together we stood for hope." Saren laid a hand on the monument, tears in her eyes. "They gave us this chance. Their memory will live forever." Elena nodded. "And we'll make sure the future they died for is worth it." A new era begins. Weeks passed. Xerath Prime flourished like never before. Humans and Valari worked in harmony, blending their cultures and knowledge. New schools taught children both Valari history and human science. Gardens bloomed beside crystal towers. Elena and Saren often walked together, discussing plans for exploration, research, and defense. The bond between their species was unbreakable. One evening, Saren asked, "Do you think the Draxan will come back?" Elena smiled softly. "Perhaps. But next time we won't just survive. We'll be ready. We've learned something stronger than fear. Unity." The galactic message far beyond Xerath Prime. Sensors picked up a faint signal. A transmission traveling faster than normal space travel could explain. It carried a simple universal message. Humanity has arrived. They answer calls no one else hears. They fight not for power, but for hope. Take note, Galaxy. A new force stands. Ortiz and Kenji received it on their screens. Elena and Saren joined them, reading the message together. Saren's eyes sparkled. "They will know our story now." Elena nodded. "And maybe, just maybe, the universe will start to believe in hope again." The promise of tomorrow. The rebuilt city stood as a beacon of what could be achieved when compassion and courage worked together. Humans and Valari explored new worlds, created new alliances, and studied the remnants of the Draxan Empire to prevent future attacks. Saren and Elena led the first joint mission beyond Zirath Prime, a symbol of unity and determination. As they left the planet, the twin suns set behind them, casting golden light on a world that had risen from the ashes stronger than ever. Before they departed, Saren turned to Elena. "You called it a mistake, that first signal." "But it wasn't, it was a beginning." Elena smiled, eyes shining. "A beginning, and we'll make sure it leads to something beautiful. A legacy that lasts back on Earth." Messages from Zirath Prime reached humans. The stories of courage, unity, and sacrifice spread across continents. Children looked up at the night sky, dreaming not of war, but of connection and heroism. Admiral Marcus Hale's name became a legend, the human who had given everything for a chance to protect life beyond his own world. His spirit lived in every action, every choice, and every act of kindness the humans shared with the Valari. And in the stars, humanity's fleet shone as a symbol of hope. Not a conqueror, not an invader, but a force for good, answering calls no one else could hear. The galaxy had changed forever. The final words. Elena stood on the observation deck of the flagship, looking at Zirath Prime glowing in the distance. Beside her, Saren reflected on the journey that had begun with a single mistaken signal. Elena whispered softly, "We came when no one else would. We stood when no one else could. And that's what makes us human." Saren smiled. "And that's what makes us Valari." Together they watched the stars, knowing the future was uncertain but bright. For the first time in centuries, hope was not just a dream. It was real. It was alive. And it would never fade.